I'm rolling picture and rolling sound, and there's a sync button.
Okay. For kind of contemporary artists, do you think, I guess, with the internet and with kind of people being inundated with art and video and text, is it kind of a question of like if you're making socio-political statements with your art, is that the kind of stuff that do you think grabs people's attention more than just pure aesthetic art?
I personally prefer the political art and the rant poems and social change poems and things like that. But I can also see where that can start to feel heavy-handed and manipulated and not free form. I think there's room for both, because that's one of the things I always liked originally about poetry, was stuff that was making a statement, and the stuff that's just language poetry or even nonsense poetry but sounding good. I like that too, though. It's not irrelevant. It's just a different type of thing. You have to know what you're doing. You want to decide, and if you're going to present something that's poetry and then it turns out to be all political rants, that's maybe something you might like to know before you got there, just to prepare your head for it. But yeah, I think there's room for all that, and all the new, and also things you don't necessarily want to hear them all the time. For example, Gertrude Stein. I mean, I love her book America, but you wouldn't want every book to be written in that style. It would drive you crazy. So that's what's nice about North Beach. There's a lot of different styles.
And what about, how would you kind of cover or explain North Beach in terms of art that's about communication?
I think maybe in the past it used to be a little bit more. Of course, you have Jack Hirschman, who's poet laureate of San Francisco in the past also, and he's very political and of sharing the wealth more. That's a definite part of the North Beach scene, because obviously, as I said before, there's like 20 different art scenes in San Francisco, so there's really, it's segmented, but it interacts too. I think there's more art for art's sake, but you really will. Sometimes when you look at something closely, it doesn't seem political. This Ronald Sauer did a great thing, a painting. It's not really a painting. Anyway, whatever it is, it has so much historical stuff going on in it. You could sit there for hours and just see, and it's only 11 by 10 or something, and it's got so much history in it. But when you look at it from afar, it just looks sort of abstract. There's a lot of, but different, and then different people in different mediums. Like my friend Vince, his poetry can be more political than his art is not usually political.
Visual art.
Yeah, his visual art. Most of that. I don't even know if I can think. There might be one or something, but I mean mostly it's, whereas Lawrence Ferlinghetti, his visual art is very political. A lot of it is very political.
He does visual art too?
Oh, he does oil paintings, tons of them. He does them, he has a big studio in that Mission Bay, I think, area, something like that. It used to be the Army base. They have art studios in there.
Now, do you have any kind of art projects of your own that you would like to do in the near future?
Well, I just love that sculpture, but I think that I already did the ones that I wanted to do. So I actually, rather than taking new photos, I would like to organize these photos that I have, this decade of photos documenting kind of the North Beach scene and the characters and events and that type of stuff. It's just when you go through them and look at them, it's like reliving all of them again, and it's fun.
And okay, so with the Famous Footsteps series, who would you want to do if you continued
Oh,
the series now?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to do Willa Cather in New Mexico because I have Georgia O'Keeffe in New Mexico, and that was just fascinating to do. And I did write that one. And I had wanted to do Steinbeck, possibly Rosa Parks, possibly Cesar Chavez, because I wanted to get into the whole history. Any place that there was going to be famous people, but then it just various factors that changes in life that you don't anticipate left me off that trail. And these are guide booklets, so they constantly have to be updated. So it was just became too difficult.
With living in the East Bay now, in Alameda specifically, what do you see as far as the arts in Alameda or the East Bay?
Well, the East Bay has a really popping scene, and then Alameda, obviously it's in Bay, right between San Francisco and obviously closer to Oakland, but still, it has an amazing scene. There's numerous art galleries, there's several little museums, there's the Frank Betts Center, there's a museum at South Shore, there's a Alameda Historical Society, there's just tons of stuff. There are poetry readings from Alameda Island poets, there's the library book series. Jeff does the film thing at the library, and I really enjoyed the free films once a month. We're doing great stuff at the library. I think that there is a lot of support for the arts, but how it's going to fit in when push comes to shove with real estate, most artists need studios. It's actually, some of the things are dangerous to be sleeping in the same room with all your oil paints and chemicals and stuff, but they just do it, and it's great.
Now, what do you see as kind of to get into the challenges for artists living here, working here?
Just finding a place to live and finding a place to work, and then distributing the art too, if that's a big other element of it. How do you get it out there? We used to have the North Beach Art in the Alley thing, which was just a few days, but that let the sort of lower level artists that didn't have a big outlet, it was a great place to show and try to sell stuff. And I would say that somehow subsidizing more, for everybody, not just artists, because obviously the artists need their fans and their followers and their wannabes, and all of that creates the whole scene and space for everybody that on the low end of the income, because that's how they got here. If San Francisco had been super expensive 150 years ago, these people wouldn't have been coming out here. The rents used to be great, and you don't have to pay that much for heat. You don't hardly ever need air conditioning. You don't have to have a lot of heavy, expensive winter clothes. You don't have to build a winterized house. I mean, it's less expensive, and initially it was a lot less expensive. So marginal people had big margins here.
How about for an artist, and if you want to speak about this because it's kind of more personal, but maintaining kind of a consistent creative life with a family, with a marriage, what are your insights into that?
Well, I didn't even have children. I just had a husband. But he wanted to come home for lunch every day, and I was supposed to make him a hot lunch, and I didn't even have a desk of my own. And so when I don't know how hard I would imagine if you're especially a woman, but a man too, when you're trying to juggle a family, work, which is more and more demanding, and your last minute schedule changes and reading emails on the weekends. I mean, how do you find the time? Some people, they have 5 extra minutes, they can create a painting. But other people need hours just to get into the zone where they can create. So each person is different, but I think that, yes, today there's too many distractions. But then zeroing in on your art, then people can get more intense. It's an escapism, too.
How about what kind of gender challenges do you see for female artists versus male artists?
Well, I think there's, anything, even the playground, there's always the guys and the gals, so to speak, and it is a little bit of an old boys club. I mean, people just know one another. Who do you choose for something when you think of the people you know? I mean, you don't know who the people are, but you don't know because you don't know. But you know the people you know, and so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think that the women are pretty well accepted in the North Beach scene. I mean, there's Agneta Falk, Rosemary Mono, Tarnoff. I can't remember her first name now, but anyway, Tina Tarnoff. They do different art stuff. There's lots of women artists, so there's not as many women musicians. There's lots of women poets.
With your Famous Footsteps series, can you talk about the evolution of that and how you kind of got into doing that?
Well, I lived in Idaho, very close to the Ernest Hemingway house, and I had traveled all over the world and seen so many guide booklets, and I realized people didn't know where the sites were for Hemingway. I was studying for the bar exam and did that as a little project so I would have some balance. And I didn't know anything about publishing. This was back in the 86. Somehow got in the first wave of self-publishing and took off, and people asked me to do Hemingway in Key West, and then I did Tennessee Williams in Key West, and it went on, and it was a lot of fun. Didn't make too much money, but sold thousands of books. So that was fun.
And what kind of writing or art did you do prior to that series?
Well, I had to do a master's thesis on multinational corporations. That was a lot of fun also, very factual. And even though I wrote it 25 years ago, you can see that the scholars back then were already predicting some of these problems that we're having today. So that was more, I've actually mostly liked factual writing.
What were some of the problems that they predicted that came
Well,
true?
the electronic fund transfers and the inability to monitor the financial situation with, vis-a-vis the power of these corporations, who they really were, how you would control them or adequately tax them, things like that. It was, obviously a prime concern today.
And who were the other authors that you featured in the series?
Oh, in my guide booklet series? Well, it was Famous Footsteps, about famous people and their favorite places. So another author did Emily Dickinson, and another author, Jill Maney, did Emily Dickinson, and Janet McKee did the Jack London in California. But I would do the factual edit on them all, and then I would travel to all the places. This was really fun. And go to try to do as many experiences, and I would take the photos, which I then had a friend of mine on royalty basis doing the sketches of the photos, so you didn't have to take production quality photos, but and I think that was a real asset, having these original artworks in each page featured an artwork.
And when you lived in San Francisco, what was your experience with the North Beach poetry and art scene?
It was great from the beginning. The people were fascinating. They were very open. You would run into them. I met one of the early people at a bookstore, an antiquarian bookstore. I met Vince and Fanny at an art show. I didn't really hang out in the bars or even the coffee shops that much, but going to all the art openings, and it's a very inclusive community.
How many years did you live in San Francisco?
I first got a place there in '99, and then I one was in the marina, then to North Beach, and I loved my place in North Beach, but I had to leave to go and take care of my mother for about 7 years. But keeping in touch with Facebook, coming back occasionally, and the Facebook has been great with keeping this community. It's North Beach and Beyond. That's the name of the group.
The group.
Yeah. And
what kind of shift have you seen now with the North Beach scene and poetry in San Francisco?
When I first got here, it seemed as if there was more excitement about the poetry, although there's been a lot of literary things at Litquake and the rap scene in Oakland and all of that. So a lot of the people have died. And at the same time, somehow this North Beach community has been able to maintain this vibrant thing, shows at this Live Worms gallery. Somebody just opened the Bauhaus gallery, James Chaw and Romelin Schmaltz. Anyway, there's a lot of dynamism, and somehow they've been able to hold on. Now, the founder of the Trieste, Papa Johnny, just died a few days ago, and people are afraid, of course, that the Trieste might change, because that coffee shop is really the heart, the living room of North Beach. So that's but I think a lot of the artists have really been able to hang on because they're willing to sacrifice their lifestyle.
And what other kind of cultural shifts do you notice in the Bay Area now?
Well, there's an obvious emphasis on money. And I think an especially an egregious example for me is the new San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Because one thing that fuels the whole dynamism of art in the Bay Area is all of these different art communities, of which there's literally dozens, and how they interact and mix, and then everybody goes to all the art shows at the De Young and the Legion of Honor and MoMA, Yerba Buena Center, Contemporary Jewish Museum, which just has the Bill Graham show. And this is shocking that the new San Francisco Museum of Modern Art no longer has any free days. All of the other museums have free days and reduced rates, like on the Thursday night, but you still had to pay the full rate on Thursday night, even if you didn't get there till 5 or 6. So I'm really hoping, when I called them, they said they were thinking of changing that. And that access to other artists is integral to keeping a dynamism in the community.
Now, you mentioned Vince. How many years ago did you meet Vince?
I met Vince early on, I think maybe 2000, at an art show in North Beach. That, you have to keep your eyes open, and I had seen a little poster, and it was upstairs on Grant Avenue, and I bought a piece of his art and met a few of the artists, and somehow wandering around, and that's sort of a thing. There's a sort of belief in San Francisco, I think, of the serendipity. And if you're meant to see someone, you'll see them. And if you try to see them and you're not meant to see them, you won't. And so somehow you would just run into people at the right time. It's kind of amazing.
Now, with Vince and your kind of creative relationship with him, can you talk about your involvement with his novel, Lascaux Nova?
Well, I've been reading that for years. And I read it, and I remember the first version I really liked, but then he has been changing it, and it's been evolving, and it changed into a changing thing. And I look for mostly typos, but also consistency. And I'm not trying to change his style, but maybe some places tighten it up, or from the reader's point of view, it might be hard to follow. So once in a while, I don't find too much that way, but it's been fun. I'm dying to read the next section.
Who would you say are your favorite writers or poets?
My favorite poets, I really date myself because they're people like Homer. I loved the Odyssey, and Dante to some extent, and artists too. I loved all the Impressionists, and when I was younger in high school, and I could go to the Yale University Art Gallery, which is totally free because of that access. They had a wonderful collection with a lot of the Impressionists. So I like the Impressionists and the modern, and I don't like stuff that's as historical. When the older art that was more for depicting historical scenes only interests me when it has some kind of historical context that I can relate it to.
The idea that
a lot of when you look at a lot of these principles, so many people think, oh, the Beats were about, sex and drugs, and really that is just not totally accurate. I mean, it's a part of it because those are things that have been around since the beginning of man.
Well, and their interest in drugs was more to think in different ways, not to escape or numb their thinking.
They wanted to enhance their experience and open the doors of perception, and then create art based upon their new insights developed by their psychedelic drugs, etc.
And insights into their own psyche and also the world around them.
Correct.
Kind
exactly.
of both perceptions.
And also of the other world. There was a lot of we want to take these things that were historically taken by indigenous tribes, etc. For example, peyote, different things like that, which were taken as an attempt to reach the outer world, the gods, the whole meaning of life, and apparently ecstasy does that for some people, and that was definitely a factor. And there was a very spiritual element to the Beats.
And as far as the sex and sexuality, they were, I guess, exploring like open relationships and homosexuality, I guess in a more free way.
Right, because one of the big tenets was that people should be able to express who they really were. They shouldn't have restrictions based upon religion or family pressure or societal pressure, that basically man is good. Humans and animals are good, and therefore we have to try to cultivate the expression of that goodness.
And what's kept you to stay in the Bay Area and not consider moving somewhere else in California or out of state?
Well, I just love this creative community here, and how they're so inclusive and they're so generous that when somebody has problems, they're more likely to like them more and help them more. Even people who have antisocial tendencies sometimes, and it's recognized as a mental condition, and people are sympathetic. Recently, I actually didn't like the guy, but his Tourette's syndrome was part of his complex, but this person was very hostile to people, and yet when he died, they had this big funeral for him. And even when he was alive, of course, they were treating him nice too. The police even bought him a big quilt. It's just different types of inclusivity and acceptance of things the way they are, and trying to improve things, but not just by throwing money at it.
Do you think Oakland and the East Bay is kind of the new, I guess, center for independent artists rather than San Francisco?
Well, it definitely seems to be that people can't afford San Francisco, but then the East Bay has gotten really expensive too. So it's hard to say. San Francisco itself, just the geography of it, the beauty of it, and its desire to actually keep the artists there. The city would like to keep the artists, but the financial constraints are difficult. But yes, a lot of artists have moved to the East Bay, and there's a lot of open studios, open mics, the rap. I love that type of poetry, and that's what's nice about that new poetry, is that it is socially conscious. They really are trying to say stuff about it.
Tonight, it's time for the final.
Roe Cohen is his mentor.
Hillary Clinton.
Roy Cohen.
The final
Was his big mentor.
from the
He's as
University
crazy
of
as they
Nevada,
come.
Las Vegas. Now reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
You ever seen
Good
the play
evening.
about...
Welcome
Okay,
to
quiet,
the
everyone.
piece
Everyone
of this
quiet.
always surprising campaign. We are less than 3 weeks from the final votes. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump about to take that stage in Las Vegas for their third showdown. If it's anything like the first two, a city known for prize fights about to score one more.
Among
Here with
others,
All right, this is part 2 with Marsha, May 12th, 2017. Go ahead, Marsha.
So I learned a lot of stuff from Vince, a lot of things not to do, like not to go into debt. Although for him it actually worked to buy all his art and everything, and he had a great life, and he didn't have to get involved in a lot of stuff that other people have to get involved in if they're sick for a long time. So from that point of view, I think it's sort of carpe diem, and have a good time while you're here. You don't really know how long you'll be here, and you could never be probably overly kind or overly considerate. I mean, I felt that even though at times, he could have a meltdown and you can get kind of annoyed at him. And sometimes I would get so annoyed at him, I think to myself, what is this guy thinking? But then not a lot of times, but a few times he'd call me and say, I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't really mean what I was saying. I was like,
oh, wow.
Or sometimes he would take the devil's advocate position too. And I'd say, that's ridiculous. And he'd say, well, yeah, I know, but I'm just trying to be like the devil's advocate. So that was fun. But he was always, to me, pretty considerate and kind. And thanks to him that I got to Alameda. So I think that obviously people can't give of themselves if they're just already strapped out or something. But if you can, and he was the type of person that would always try to help out somebody. And that was a really great thing, and I would like to be more like that myself, especially since I benefited from his help. So, let's see.
What about, like, with Lasco Nova, if you could kind of summarize your involvement with the novel, like a history of that?
Okay, first of all, it turns out he was doing all this novel for all this time, but I came into it was like a non sequitur for me, so I wasn't really sure what I was reading, and then he would keep changing it. But after like 10 years, I got the idea that he wanted to show the evolution of this person learning about art and how they would develop an art sensibility. And obviously, as the title would indicate, and he believed that we have this evidence that as far back as Lascaux, there were all of these thousands. I only learned it was thousands from him just weeks before he died. Thousands of drawings in Lascaux. And from that, I think he was thinking that, is that some primordial force? Is that some part of our DNA, genetic identity? Is this, where does this art spring from? And so then he was trying to describe this young man's journey from the backwoods or Appalachian coal mines of West Virginia, to California. And I haven't read the end that he has now on this first part, so I don't really know what, but I assume it was coming out to California, which that I know is in there, but coming out to California, meeting people, learning about art, becoming an artist. I'm not sure what actually happens at the end of these 400 pages that I'm going to read.
I'm glad he finished it. Like, just the fact that, I mean, he was still, I think, tweaking it as far as some phrasing, grammar, spacing, etc. But I feel like, I mean, the content, I think, is there. And
well, that's why I can't wait to read this entire version, that whether that would have been what he would have wanted as his last version has become his last version by fait accompli. And therefore, it'll be interesting for me to read it and see how I think it works with all of the changes that he's made in it, and how there might have to be some editing just because of an obvious inconsistency.
Yeah.
which I think I might have spotted one in the woman's name, but I'm not sure, because sometimes you think something's wrong, but then later on it becomes evident that that was some little seed for some idea to be developed.
And you and I read a draft of the novel, was it last summer? He gave us both a draft?
But was that the entire first part? I don't think that was 400 pages.
It wasn't 400, but it was definitely...
Like 2-something, at least. 275 maybe, or something.
It was meaty. And it was the whole, beginning, middle, end, the whole thing.
Yeah, but it's now 400 and some pages, so obviously there's...
Yeah, for about 450 pages.
But then he kept telling me he was cutting stuff out. That's what I guess. Wait a minute. He was an enigma at times.
Well, and part of me thinks maybe he just really wouldn't have finished it. Maybe he would have been tweaking it.
Oh, he would have been forever tweaking.
A year from now.
10 years from now. I mean, apparently there's some artists that do that in different fields too, like painters, composers.
Yeah.
There's one composer that said, I can't remember who it was. He's still alive, so because I heard it on the radio. But how he has to update the scores and stuff, and yes, and then it's I guess he took to numbering them so they would know which was which, and
jeez,
I think he was kind of embarrassed, but at the same time he wanted to make it better.
Well, and I actually started to print out. This is a surprise. I started to print out the sequels. So, and he put more work into the sequels than he indicated.
Huh.
Yeah, there's some
Okay, I have not seen any of the sequels that I know of, although once in a while I have said to him, what happened to that scene with the Chinatown staircase deal? And he'll say, oh, but I put that in later. So I might have read some of, because there were a couple of things where I did say, what happened to that part or something. And for example, he had this very long thing about being lost in the woods and stuff. And he cut that down. But then at one point he indicated he might have taken it all out, and I thought it should have been in there.
So the last thing I want to ask you is if you could talk a little bit about the time it takes and the effort to really make a good piece of art, because with Vince I noticed once he stopped being part of certain artistic groups as far as obligations, being on a board or something, he started to devote more time to the novel. So I guess, and that's something I've had to learn myself with making films, this stuff takes time and you have to schedule that in. You can't just do it before you go to bed every night. So what could you speak on about that topic in reference to Vince or other artists that you've noticed?
I don't know if you're saying the focus that it takes, and
the dedication.
And I think that obviously if somebody just wants to do one thing and they know what they want to do, then they can focus on it. But if they're trying to continually evolve and react to stuff around them and stuff, then they can't have blinders, tunnel vision. They have to look around. And so what was a double-edged sword for Vince in a way was being a Gemini. He wanted to do everything except maybe mountain climb and go on a spaceship. But so in a way, he did so much stuff. But it's incredible to think of the actual work that he did get done with, over 1,000 poems and these thousands of pages of prose and all of his artworks that he still was so diffused that, to me, I thought I have to be more focused and cut back on stuff that distract. And I think Vince was like he was going to be spending less time with his stamps, which was something he'd done for a long time. But in defense of the stamp collection, in one way, when I was a kid and had a much cheaper, less elaborate, but they still had elements of art, design, history, color, graphics. So actually, stamps are interesting. Intrinsically, they're works of art in a way. So that, and then also teaches you geography and politics and a lot of it. So I do think that I could see what that would, somebody that's a Gemini that could lead to all these different things. So it's hard to say if you get, like I said again, getting back to that, if you get too focused, then you're not having the interplay of all these new adventures and possibilities.
And serendipity.
Right. The serendipitous factor actually comes up even in politics. It's not, but in art, that's what I think helps it evolve.
Levels, have it so that I could kind of reach you probably about here. So it's, we're somewhere in Alameda, California, at an undisclosed location. This is May 12th, 2017. And we're here, as far as I can tell, we're still here on Earth, living. I'm with Marsha, and I'm going to ask Marsha, how has Vince Storti been significant to the San Francisco art and poetry scene?
Well, I've only known Vince for like 15 or 16 years, and he was doing a lot of stuff, running poetry, readings at the Yickety Yak Coffee Shop, and various other things, and writing poetry. When I met him, he had moved from the East Bay to San Francisco, where he was born, had been born, and he was very involved in doing this North Coast Literary Review. And the nice thing about that was a lot of the people in the San Francisco and the Bay Area were involved with that. And the first issue, we had this fantastic party at the Live Worms Gallery, and it was just unbelievable. This Blake Moore danced on the wall in this combination video poem. It was really good, and everybody got together. There was a big positive vibration, and a lot of things like that that bring people together without being like too burdensome. It's kind of enjoyable. You don't have to put that much effort into it. And in addition to that, Vince was very supportive of other artists. So when there would be these art shows and stuff, he would almost always be somebody that would forget his own financial destiny and spring out and have to purchase somebody's art. And of course, that's what makes the world go round, and the art merry-go-round is having customers, appreciative audiences, and the fun and creativity and time to be able to do the art. And so Vince was very supportive of other artists. And then he would also was known for parties that he would have, and he would just invite so many people and throw out all this food and drink, and even though his places were small, they would squish in, and the one on Sutter Street was big enough with this sort of entryway area that there was overflow, and people would just bring their instruments, or sometimes they'd read poetry. Anyway, it was just great. So that he was somebody who helped create this cohesive feeling of community. And it was great to have known him, and we had a lot of fun together. What
did you learn from him, from getting to know him personally, outside of the art scene?
Yes.
Wow.
I got it there a year and a half ago. This really funky guy, white guy. He sold this to me for like $15.
What?
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
No.
It's the end of
No,
the
I had to
day,
find, I had to
you
fix
know,
the bridge. And
Oh,
the
you had to
tower.
fix
Yeah.
a few
I had
things.
to fix
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay, that's different.
Two of the pegs are missing. I
Okay,
had to put
okay,
old
that's different.
new machines
yeah,
on it,
yeah, yeah.
which I already had.
Last time, like.
But I mean,
You know
still,
what?
it
When
makes
when a
sense.
guitar breaks, or
Hey,
you keep the pieces
Because
of
the
them like an
parts-
automobile.
Yeah.
You keep the
Lives.
parts and save them. So these are
Lives
on
is
here,
alleys.
which were nicer
As
than the cheap
alleys.
silver
Lives
ones
is
that were on there
alleys.
anyway.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Because they're really
Lives is
strong.
alleys.
Okay.
Okay,
Those black
how about
ones.
Bay
And you put
30th
new
stories,
strings on.
Lives
The
of
strings,
Alleys.
I had to file down 2 of the frets.
Well, you know, for
I
film,
put a
the
new
various
thing,
stories
all these
of
are
North
new.
Bay
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
3
See,
of
that-
these things were
You
missing.
would not get
Bay
that.
Yeah, but that's
area,
nothing to a person who knows
distance.
guitar.
No,
Journeys?
This is
Right.
the minor
Bay
consideration.
area journeys.
And
are
really,
like
if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, see, which
And-
of course I don't,
yeah.
obviously, but yeah, it looks
Lives
great.
as
And it
Alleys.
sounds
it's
good to
easy.
me.
It's easy.
And then the other one you want to write
guitars.
down.
You know, it's like knowing horses. Either you know them or you don't.
Oh, wait.
Well, I'm
Lives
kind of intermediate.
in the alleys.
You play the guitar?
No,
Yeah.
horses. With horses.
And then the other one you want to write
Wait, the
down.
horses come in?
No, I said I'm an intermediate.
Emperor's
with
New
horses.
Clothes.
I know them a little bit, but I'm not really a connoisseur.
all of me. Why not take all of me?
I think it's a G.
Can't you see I'm nothing without you? Take my lips. I wanna use them. Take my arms. I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, dear, without you? You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all of me?
Nice.
Flat.
No, I
Go for
didn't.
it.
I didn't get it this time. I just didn't get it. D7.
So, back to your
Nice.
fine.
Growing up in New York City in the '60s because of the
Fairly fine.
educational system, so intense.
Oh, and it was more integrated and more.
We had painting classes.
Right.
But back to the original thing, it's kind of
I
like,
had that too.
Yeah.
I did
I
sculpture.
mean, whatever happens, we
Yeah.
continue to make art. You continue with the novel. I continue
That's why
making
I
the
object to the
film.
Museum of Modern Art.
And that's probably the best we can do.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I just have to get back to my computer because it's smoking. I mean, it is smoking now.
But how would you describe that groove, being in that creative zone? Like how has that been?
Well, it's funny. It just happens accidentally. I'm already in the creative zone, and then you turn me on to Eugene O'Neill's book play,
Iceman Cometh.
Iceman Cometh. So I'm reading the first couple of pages of that, and I'm going, whoa, great. So I had a scene almost like that bar scene, but I didn't have lights on either. So I'm going to put lights on either side. I haven't put liquor in that scene yet, but I can put liquor in there. It should be in there because it's an old guy's club. But I wrote that before I read his window. So he's giving me the lights, and it'll give me the bar scene a little bit, the old man bar scene. Yeah. So it's good to read that. Good suggestion on your
I
part.
read that in high school, and it always stayed with me.
As Jack Hirschman, I said, have you read Iceman Cometh?
He said,
And he said, of course I have.
Did you ever get to play an instrument growing up as a kid?
No, he was pretty insecure
Well, of course,
about
the recorder,
You know,
which was in
okay, I'm
school,
sorry,
we had that
man.
in
I
school.
just read it myself.
Of course,
It's
I
like
wasn't really
he was
good
real
at that.
intense
My
about it.
mother
Like, of
was,
course I have. Like, I'm
piano
educated,
lessons.
and you say you haven't
Well,
read
the
it.
reason
Well,
is
no,
because
I have not.
I don't really
I don't
have a
care.
sense
I
of
read a lot of
music.
stuff.
I love
I don't read.
music.
You
I
know,
really like it.
I read my own
can
stuff.
identify
But that's
parts
the
of
fun.
music.
I mean, I think
Like, if you
that's
play
what
jazz.
Got a strong
makes
sense of history.
But
any community what it is. I mean, he overreacts. It's okay. We still like him.
Okay, there's a section of this that I haven't mentioned to you, but the amount of research I do, I'm reading books like crazy. I'm looking online. Mostly I'm looking online because I don't have time to read the books. But a lot of Wikipedia, which people say, but it gives you sources.
It gives you a bio.
And then you've given me several. You've given
Well,
me
the thing
several
about singing is, you know, you gotta love doing it.
references.
If you
Points
love
of
doing
interest.
it, it doesn't matter
Like the
what kind of
Eugene
voice
O'Neill,
you
when you
have.
mentioned that. And so all this stuff's integrating as it goes on. And suddenly I'm twisting kind of almost out of control.
That's a chance you have to take.
But
Well, when
that's
I
the
was
point.
in
You have to go.
fourth
You
grade-
have to go up to the edge.
But being open to those suggestions is also key, I think, as a writer. Because you might say, "No, I got it. I don't need
Right.
this man. I got it."
Yeah. That's
Like
like
never-
Vincent. That's a Vincent. That's Vincent. You know. I shouldn't say names.
Well,
Yeah.
anybody. I mean, I think that's the thing with the whole ego and your skill level. When you get to a certain point, you might say, "Oh, Vince."
But you have to have.
I know what
The
it's-
weird thing is, you have an ego to do it well. You have
To
believe
begin
in
with.
yourself.
To begin with.
It's a self-identity thing, not just ego. It's the fact you have to believe in what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you have to believe in your voice. And then at that point, you have to follow through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now, following through. Yes, man. It's
But
But
intense.
are you still think June is when you'll have it done?
Certainly,
Published?
certainly. Not published,
Now
but
let it go.
basically
Final draft.
document, final draft.
Beautiful
Yeah.
voice by
Good.
Should be by
David as a singer
mid-March.
because he
Well, I
loves
leave
singing.
mid-March from
How along
Washington,
the
so
open
late
road.
March probably. I still got a lot of February. It could be in February. You know, it could be.
The night was very dark and thick between them.
Sounds good.
Each man beneath his ordinary load. I'd like to tell my story. Said one of them, so young and bold. I'd like to tell my story before I turn into gold. Nobody really could hear them. The night so dark and thick and green. And I guess that these heroes must always live there, where you and I have only been. Put out your cigarette, my love. You've been alone too long, and some of us are very hungry now to know what it is you've done that was so wrong. I sing this for the crickets. I sing this for the army. I sing this for your children and for all who do not need me. them so young and old. I'd like to tell my story, 'cause you know I feel like turning into gold. Good old Lenny. I cried for 20 minutes when he died. Rebecca and I were here when we heard it. I just started crying for 20 minutes. Another great Jew gone. You know?
But
So
he lives
fucking-
on in the music.
He lives on in his music. He lives on in his music.
And
It's
people
so
like
beautiful.
you playing it.
He saved my life, he and Bob Dylan. They were so complicated and so honest with themselves that he gave me a...
Okay, sound rolling. This is interview take or shot two.
What would you like to discuss next? You said you had something in mind.
I don't remember saying I had something in mind. That's how quickly it fleets right out of there.
Your expectation of the questions, I guess.
Oh, I just thought they would be more related to North Beach.
Oh, okay. Is there anything you think hasn't really been either shown or discussed in books or movies about the North Beach scene that maybe you have an insight into?
Well, but there's a committed core where it's an entire lifestyle, and you devote it's not even a choice; it's a compulsion to do this art, and you're willing to not have a kitchen and live in a single room occupancy.
Can we cut?
Oh, it's cut there.
Stop for some reason.
Okay. I'm going to have him come in and ask you some questions, and I'm going to still hang out. So
Okay, sounds great.
Vince, come on down.
Here he
Out of the
is.
closet, out of the exile.
I'll let you sit here.
Out of the exile, thank you very much. Out of the exile we come, and I went to pester Marsha with a couple of questions. One of the reasons I wanted to stay out of this is because I know Marsha so well. I wanted all the questions coming from you to be like what you know, but I know a couple of secrets about her. For example,
Okay.
Tell me about your experience working for the San Francisco Opera.
Well, there were ups and downs about that. It was selling season tickets on the phone, but it was much better than the normal telemarketing because they actually wanted us to know about the operas and be able to talk about the operas. They would give us free tickets to go to the operas. They would come and give us lectures about the operas. But then there was the downside of being a mechanized worker, and they could change the bosses, and it was...
Your working conditions were rather dire.
Oh, we had
also.
like 20 people in this little mezzanine above the other offices, and
It shocked me something as high-end as the opera would have had that kind
well,
of
they
operation.
weren't actually sort of farmed out.
Well, that they would allow that. You know, in other words, as they
That's
farmed
their
it out, not
subcontractor,
to...
right?
Yeah, so, anyway, but the question leads me about what is your understanding of theater?
Theater?
Theater.
Theater?
Theater.
Okay.
Theater.
Well, I used to actually, that was one of my first culture vulture loves. Now we're in this culture glut. But San Francisco still does not really remain a top theater city the way New York is. I mean, there's nothing that can compare to New York. Well, at least in the United States for theater, the numbers of theaters, the number of variety, blah, blah.
What about Sam
But-
Shepard's Magic Theater? Kind of,
Well, yeah, there have been definite things that have been important in the Bay Area and theater-wise. And obviously, they get all the plays. They're going to be getting Hamilton in a few weeks at Book of Mormon. They get the big plays. They also do a lot of local stuff. And a lot of, if you're in that community and you're following that, there's definitely a lot going on. And there's a lot of creative writing. There is a lot of writing here, but it doesn't have that same buzz. There's not it's not concentrated in as much of an area, so it doesn't seem like as much of a theater city, but there's always something happening.
Yeah, it's a single block on Kern Street pretty much now. I think it was a little bit more previously. There are a couple of theaters around there. I mean, there's a kind of
Right.
theater district, but it's not like where you got wall-to-wall theaters in Midtown Manhattan. You know, yeah. My last question is, what did you think of the interview process?
Well, I thought it was interesting, and obviously there's a difference between if I had anticipated Jeff's questions, if I had had the questions beforehand, I could see where that would give a totally different tone than when you're just answering extemporaneously. And also the quality of the questions, I think that's important. So I think it's fun.
I was listening a little bit, and because I don't like to eavesdrop, of course, because I'm in my cage.
There you are.
Because I'm in my
House,
cage,
right?
pacing back and forth. But I thought you got some really good questions from Jeff, and I
Yes,
also
I
thought that
agree.
you knocked him out of the ballpark. I think you did a really great job.
Well,
You only missed one thing. We didn't meet on Grant Street. We met upstairs. It was Green Street upstairs. That was just a correction that I wanted to make.
Oh, was that on Green?
It was
Okay,
on
but it was
Green,
at
yeah, 'cause
Green
I
and
was, it was
Grant.
just above Saldani's, I think.
Oh,
So
okay,
I showed
okay.
him that yesterday, so I didn't want any
Okay.
inconsistency. Okay, yeah.
But it might have been Green and Grant right on that
Right
corner.
there, yeah, right about there,
right.
yeah,
I know
yeah,
it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
far from there, so.
Well, good. Well, that's my...
I still have that artwork too.
You do? Wow.
Yeah, it was-
Incredible.
Has these twins in it, and I'm a twin.
Yeah, I've got, actually, by the way, there's her piece of art is right there, and this beautiful sculpture there. It's one of my treasures. It's like, it's great, the blue.
What inspired you to make that, Marsha?
I just liked this. All of these pieces. That's part of, almost could be part of the nuclear waste piece.
Oh, that's part of the series.
Well, that wasn't really part of it, but you could see how it could be, because it's supposed to be destroyed and melted down nuclear elements. One of them is called Cooling Tower Incident. Another one is a full moon meltdown, and another one is when Chernobyl meets magma. So they were all. Yeah, so it'd be part. There would be pieces. I would put them together with multi. So this
Yeah, see, that
could be
was supposed to look
this,
like lava.
and that might be like hanging underneath the blown hole in the cooling tower incident piece. See, they would be multi-piece pieces.
Do you still worry about nuclear fallout?
Oh my God! Not fallout, is the waste, the nuclear waste, and that we have not had any handle on that whatsoever. Even Chernobyl is still happening. They've just put an extra concrete cap on it. So what's happening? I think it will eventually meet
Or in
the magma.
Fukushima?
And Fukushima as well. Yes. So
And you had a show showing that on Grant Street, correct?
right, with a bunch of other artists. Aggie Falk, there's one of her pieces. Vince has a little art gallery here of a lot of the different art, and that's a part of the North Beach scene too. Everybody supports everybody else by buying some kind of their art at least once in a while. That's a really, unless you're really destitute, everybody knows that there's not, in fact, people are more helpful to people if they're more destitute. They don't shun them like in some cultures where if you don't have the money, you can't play.
Well, speaking of the cultural element, what's your experience with ego in art and kind of people who want to get famous or rich, and that being kind of a motivating factor?
Okay, and that's part of this need to develop commercialism so that you can afford the rents and all of that. So it's leading to that, but I don't think that's that good, because like I said before, a lot of these people have this compulsion and they're not commercially oriented. And when you start thinking about, oh, is this what the market wants? I'm not sure about these colors, but this is the palette they're showing in House Beautiful or, interior design magazines, so I want something that the wealthy will buy to decorate their condos. I think it's okay, but I don't think it's the same, it will produce the same quality of art.
What do you think of modern art?
Oh, I love it. I love the colors. I love colors. So the modern art has a lot of different colors and things that are surrealistic or just totally abstract. But a lot of abstractions end up looking like something or evoking a feeling. And yeah, can't wait to get into the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art if they ever establish their free days again. I was going to become a member, but until they give away a free day, I'm not becoming
Yeah,
a member.
you actually called them to tell them, and actually the person on the other end of the line was quite eloquent, but didn't have any decision-making
Authority should pass on
Yeah,
the message
yeah.
about the opening,
Yeah,
the
about-
free day.
It gets a good free day that was promised and has been neglected.
Now, part of this, I guess, the reflexive, element of the interview. Do you have any questions for me or Vince about this process or movie?
I guess my question is because when you first started, it was going to be just a 15-minute little mini thing about Vince, and now it's evolved into something else, and you're interviewing all these people, but I have to assume it's not going to be just interviews.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So what else is it going to be?
There's going to be adaptations of Vince's poetry, and I think he's dealing with modifying that, and there's some dance.
Oh yeah,
It's going to
Blake
be in
Moore.
the film.
Right.
I'm meeting with somebody Monday, another woman to do a dance
Oh, as well. Okay.
and be interviewed.
Uh-huh.
There's going to be a lot of images of San Francisco that show the construction and downtown and different neighborhoods. I think that's most of it, as far as kind of the structure.
And actually, a lot like Coit Tower and the Golden Gate Bridge, both are featured in a lot of different artworks.
Right.
But it's just amazing.
Well, I think I'm done with all my questions, so I guess.
Thanks for coming out here today and doing this.
Great.
Well, I think you guys are great. I wish you the best of luck with this film. I can't wait to see it.
Thanks. All right. We can cut it.
Rolling.
Okay. So the question of, in regard to all the books and movies that have covered the North Beach scene, what do you notice as your own kind of personal insights into North Beach that haven't been covered?
Well, and I'm not sure how you would do this on camera, but the compulsion that these artists feel that they just spend this unbelievable amount of time and energy. They're willing to sacrifice a lifestyle that's more comfortable in order to produce this art. And some of it, once they produce it, whether it sells or not or something, it's really insignificant. The whole thing was in this creation. So there's this desire to create, and it's multifaceted in North Beach. There are people who are, and a lot of the people do 2 or 3 things too. So there's music, poetry, and art, which can be sculpture, collage. There's wonderful, like Rebecca Peters is just an amazing collage artist. It's the dexterity that's required and skill that's required sometimes in some of these pieces isn't really evident, the production qualities.
And what do you kind of notice, or how do you make sense of the post-beat, I guess, stage of San Francisco for
You
writers?
mean the new, well, some of it's been great for a lot of writers. There's a lot of people who are doing blogs and who are based in San Francisco and doing all different types of writing. So I think San Francisco is definitely a literary community of real active, but some people have had difficulty getting access, but there's always some like in North Beach, there are people who are constantly producing things that they wouldn't have been able to do without the new technology. So a lot of people have definitely adapted to that, have online sales, and then you can display your art on Facebook and stuff like that. So.
What do you think, I guess, on a philosophical level, what's the importance of art in society?
Yeah, I wonder about that. Because historically, art was initially seemed more religious or ceremonial. Then it became state influenced and historical, and it really wasn't until just recently, in the last few hundred years, where art has become art for art's sake in a certain way. I think it's really fun. I used to do sculptures at down at Fort Mason, the city college, And they had a great program with Mary Graubacher, who's kind of a well-known ceramicist. And so all of these are, and it's so much fun. I mean, it's like a kid playing in a sandbox. But how much it should be valued, especially when you see these $20 million cartoon things or $62 million, and I think there's an underlying strange nonprofit, charity, art gallery, art museums, all of that doesn't really touch the North Beach scene, because the North Beach scene has not got that big money.
And I guess with your own compulsion to make art, like, does that come from like a place where it's therapeutic to make art, or it's more entertainment? How would you describe that, like your creative process with the things you've done yourself?
I would say fun and therapeutic, because you're having fun, it's therapeutic. And so I did these series about nuclear waste and sculpture, and they were so heavy, clay sculptures, I had to end up destroying them, thinking if only it was that easy to get rid of nuclear waste. But that was a lot of fun, and of course luckily I took some pictures of them. But I did this stuff with nail polish, which is just great, except it's lots of bad fumes, so I don't recommend it. But in a kind of Jackson Pollock style, but you do have a lot of control, even though it looks like they're just throwing the stuff down. You're choosing the color and where to throw it, and I don't know. I think it might be more agony to like somebody like Vince, who does the novels and the poetry. I think the writing is harder to do than the art can be more fun.
What do you see for the Bay Area or San Francisco for the arts in the future, or for artists to move here to be part of the community?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think that everybody recognizes that arts are integral to the whole San Francisco, Bay Area, Oakland scene, Sausalito, so everybody does want to maintain it, but I think in some ways it might have to become more commercialized in order to pay for itself.